All right. Good morning or afternoon, depending on where you're at. I'm glad to be here today, joining you from northern Colorado. We're going to talk a little bit about BIM 360 and Civil 3D and how we can collaborate better with our partners that are using Revit and or InfraWorks, and then some other tools to share our documents outside of BIM 360 to those people. So I'm going to share my screen. And let me know if everybody can see that okay as soon as it gets there.
Can't see it yet.
There we go. Hopefully it shows up here.
There it is. You're good.
Perfect. Okay. So as we can see, I'm over here in my BIM 360 console. I've got my project created already. It's simply our webinar BIM coordination. It's all set up and ready to go. Within our BIM 360 project, we have a couple consoles activated for us, and that would be the document management and the design, BIM 360 design. We've got those activated. So hopefully so design collaboration and document management, those are activated. So we're going to jump right over to InfraWorks so we can get that model building while we start doing some of our other work. So let me launch InfraWorks over here. We need to go start our model builder. So we're going to get a new model created. We're going to jump in here. This is going to open up. I know I want to be working on my project, which is near Felton, Pennsylvania. I'm going to zoom in, and I'm just going to rectangle out the area where my project is. It's a little bit bigger than I need, but I'd rather have too much data than not enough right now. So let me name my model here. We'll call this webinar BIM Cord 2, and then let's set our coordinate system. I know I want to be in PA 83-SF for our local coordinate system. Click OK. That's all set, and then we'll create our model. So while our InfraWorks works in the background to create our model, I'm going to jump into Civil 3D and show you a little bit of what we've got going on there. I'm going to go over to Civil 3D. I'm going to open up our drawing, which is going to be inside of our BIM 360. Go to the proper account here and our project that we have set up. I'm going to jump into our project files and Civil 3D and open up my CAD file here. Now, as this opens up, it's not a huge drawing. What we're going to have is a small subdivision where we've done some overlock grading, and we want to be able to share that grading with our Revit users so that they can make sure that the house and the building fit and arrange on the site properly. So we can see here I've got my building outline in here, which I received from my architect, and then I've got my final overlock grading here that we've designed. We can do a quick 3D view on that so that we can see that there's some elevation change on the lot there. Not a whole lot. We just have a pad site, and we'll make some more design changes to that as we go. So that's our Civil 3D. The first thing we need to do when we're trying to coordinate with our Revit users is we want to be able to share our surface to them through BIM 360, and this will allow them to have the proper site layout as far as, you know, building pad, what might be happening around it, if we have any detention ponds, if we're doing a commercial site or anything like that. So we want to be able to share that surface with them. So if we come up to our Output tab on our ribbon, we'll go over to that, and then we will cruise over to our Publish panel right here, and we're going to choose the Publish Surfaces right here. As I click on that, it's going to bring up this dialog box, and within here, it shows all the surfaces that I have within my drawing. I'm going to uncheck the EG and this webinar, and I'm going to use this webinar final. And then we need to specify our output file. So I'll click the 3 dots there, make sure I'm going to be within our project. So we can see I'm in my webinar BIM cord right here, which is in my BIM 360 documents. And my project files, I'm going to go into Civil 3D, and I have a shared surfaces folder. This is where I want to output my surface to. And we're going to go ahead and call this one webinar final shared -2 for today. And we'll go ahead and click save. And then what this is going to do is this is going to publish a drawing with just the surface data for the particular surface that we have checked into that file. So we'll go ahead and click OK, and it's going to start working in the background a little bit there for us. So we've got that all set up. Now, while that is working, let's jump over to Revit, just so you can see what's going on. Don't laugh. I'm not an architect. I'm not a house designer. So when you see my house, try not to laugh too much. But hey, I got it in there, and I've got my shared coordinate system all set up. So I'm going to open up my webinar project here, and it's going to open up this model for me. It takes just a second here. It's a pretty small model, so it'll get everything downloaded and updated for us. And we can see that I've got my outline here. I've set up my shared coordinate system and survey point here for my project. And I want to jump over to a 3D view of my house here. It'll click over here, and man, whoever designed that house didn't get the eaves right on that thing. So we'll have to find a better architect next time we do this. So I'm looking at a 3D model of my house right now. Now I want to link the topography that I just exported to BIM 360 from Civil 3D. So to do that, I need to go to our Insert tab right here, Insert tab, and then I want to click on the Link Topography button. And when I do that, it's going to pop up a dialog here momentarily after it finishes thinking. It's going to take me to our BIM 360 folder. Let me jump back here so we can see that I'm in my webinar BIM cord project. I'll go into my project files, and I'm looking for that surface that I just exported. So let me go into the Civil 3D folder and shared surfaces. And now I have 2 files in here. We just created this one, webinar final shared -2. So we're going to link that file. So we'll select it, and then we'll click link down at the bottom. And as we do that, it'll pop up a dialog box here for us. Actually, it dropped it right in there for me, just perfectly. So that's because I'd already set up my shared coordinate system. The magic to this is that now our architect can deal with our tin surface and see what's going on the site. Let me come back to my wheel here and orbit. And we can see that I've got that elevation change going right here. Our pad is elevated. So now we know that our architect is using the correct surface. And anytime I make updates to this, our architect will then be able to just reload that surface and have the updated data. So real easy to share our Civil 3D surface from Civil 3D over to our Revit users so that they can then work with that. So we've got that going. Let's jump over to Civil 3D real quick. And we'll make a quick edit to our surface, and then we'll reload it and see how those changes take effect. So let's jump back into Civil 3D. I'm going to come over to my surface. I'm going to grab my feature line here, which is my top of my building pad, and I want to raise that up 1 foot. So I'm simply going to come over here to Edit Elevations and Right here, raise or lower by reference. I'm going to choose what I wanted. I just wanted to raise or lower my surface. Elevations from surface. Let's see. Let me move this dialog out of the way so I can see what I'm talking about here. All right, grab my feature line and go to modify. Insert high low point, raise lower by reference, set elevation by reference. Raise lower, sorry. I always get a little flabbergasted doing these webinars. It's a little bit different. So I'm gonna raise this up simply by 1 foot. So I'm gonna add 1 foot to that. And then we need to update our grading. So let me come over to my home tab, and I'm going to come over to my grading and grading creation tools here. And I'm gonna make sure I've got all of this set up. So we're gonna work on our site webinar. I want to make sure I'm targeting my EG surface. And then I simply wanna come over here and choose edit a grading. I'm gonna click in here and edit this grading. And I wanna change that slope to, I believe right now I'm at 2:1, so let's go to 4:1. And then our fill slope will go to 4:1 also. We'll update that. And we can see that on this end here, I'm grading past the limits of my surface a little bit. So let's change our slope a little bit there again, and maybe we'll go steeper. So we'll go slope, cut slope of 2, fill slope of 2, and we can see that our pad got much smaller there. So now I want to come over to my tool space and my surfaces, and I just want to update rebuild my webinar final, which is a composite surface of my grading surface combined with part of my EG. So let me rebuild that. It'll take just a moment here for it to work through that. And then I'm going to come back over here, and I want to come over to my output tab, and I want to republish that surface again. So I'm going to publish simply the webinar final. I want to check and make sure I'm going to publish to the correct file. So we want to publish to that one again, and we'll click Save. And click OK, and we'll let Civil 3D do its magic here. We'll give it a minute to get everything uploaded to BIM 360, and then we'll head back over to our Revit model. And let's look at the front view here. We'll look at the side view. We can see it a little bit better. So we can see we've got a pretty gradual slope here on our surface and gradual slope here. And I did raise my surface a little bit. So if I come over to our Manage tab here in Revit, right here, and I go to my Manage Links, and then from there I cruise over to my Topography tab. Here's my surface that I've got right now. So if I tell it to reload, it's going to work in the background and reload that latest export that I just pushed from Civil 3D to our BIM 360, and it's going to work there for a minute, giving us the blue hamster wheel as it thinks and reloads that surface for us. And we should see some changes come from that here in just a moment. Looks like the requested service is currently unavailable, so that means that it's still pushing that surface up to BIM 360 probably. So if that happens, I'm going to come over here and tell it to reload from, and I'm just going to go select that surface again in our BIM 360 account. So here we're in Share Surfaces. I can see that I've got my webinar final shared. It's V2. We can see that that was just updated at 10:45 my time, so 2 minutes ago. I'll go ahead and click Link. And apparently it's still trying to push that up there. So let's cancel that for just a moment. We'll give it just another minute to finish working, apparently. While we're doing that, I'm going to see if our InfraWorks model has completed building yet. I'm going to check my email because InfraWorks always emails us when it tells us our model is completed, and I do have that email in my inbox. So let's open up our InfraWorks. We'll close this down, and we can see that this is the model that I just created in InfraWorks. So when I click on that, it's going to ask me, where would you like to store this model builder model at? We want to store it on BIM 360 because we want to be able to share this model with all of our project members as we're working through this design process. So I'm going to choose the proper account, and then I'm going to choose down to the project that we're working in, and now I'm going to tell it where we want to save that. So I've got my project files, and then I've got an InfraWorks folder right here, and I'm going to click OK and let our model start opening here. Now, while that works in the background, let's jump back over to Revit, and we'll see if we can't get our surface to re-update properly. So manage, and then I want to come over to our manage links, and then over to our topography here, and then let's go with reload, and hopefully this will work for us this time. Have a little bit more internet traffic going on today than last night while I was testing things, but we'll do that. Now let's look at a side view. And we can see I went to a 2-to-1 slope, so I'm not quite as steep here on the sides. If I orbit around this a little bit, we can see that our building pad is there, and we're not pushing quite as far out to the property line as we once were. So that's the extent of my Revit capabilities. I'm not a everyday Revit user. So we're going to go ahead and get out of that, and then we're going to save our Revit project right here. So now that we're saving our Revit model back to the cloud, and that is all done, so that dialog will disappear, let's jump back over to InfraWorks and see what we can bring into InfraWorks, because we're in the BIM 360 environment with a lot of our documentation, so we want to be able to share our finished grade surface that we've created for our project, as well as bring in that InfraWorks model so that we have a nice display of what's going on in our world that we can share with our project stakeholders. So being in InfraWorks here, I want to import our Civil 3D surface. So if I come over to our Manage tab right here, upper left, and then I come over to the Content panel, and then Data Sources, this guy right here, if I click on that, now I want to import a new data surface, which is going to be right here. Hit the drop-down arrow, and I tell it I want to import an Autodesk Civil 3D DWG. So I'm going to click on that, and we're going to bring in that same shared surface that we shared with our Revit model. So I'm going to cruise on over to this PC and then into BIM 360. Go to my working account, our webinar BIM project. Within our project BIM files here, into Civil 3D and our shared surface. Now we're working with the shared -2, so I want to open that up. And while that works, that'll take just a second here. It's not a huge file that we're bringing in. We're going to insert that shared surface DWG, and now we need to finish getting everything set up. So out of that file, I only want to bring in that webinar final surface. So I'll go ahead and click OK. And we can see that now I have this new surface within our document here. Let me look at our plan view here. And our project should be sitting right up here, I believe. So we'll do that. I need to configure this surface, so let me go into configure here. And so we have our surface. We're telling it we're using the webinar final. Let me jump over to the geolocation. We're set up with PA83SF. That's the coordinate system our project is in. And then we should be good. So there's our source, get location, civil 3D, close and refresh. So as soon as we do this, it tells us that we have surfaces under the uncategorized folder, and we need to change that. So let's open up our surface layers panel to manage our surface layers. So we'll click yes, and it's going to bring this up. And we can see that under terrain surfaces, I currently have an uncategorized section here. So I can simply click on the surface that I just brought in and move that down underneath our ground surface and turn that layer on and click apply. And we'll let InfraWorks update a little bit. We'll pan out. And we need to go find where my project is at. Go to our straight down view, see if we got it all correct here. Apply. Aha, sorry, I was a little far north on our site. So we can see here, we've updated that lot grading. We can see that I've got a building pad in here currently. By simply bringing in that surface that we exported from Civil 3D that we shared with our Revit, and then we brought that in from our BIM 360 file as well. So as we make changes to that, we can simply reload it within our InfraWorks model here. Now let's see about bringing in our Revit model into InfraWorks so we can see what's going on with that. So same thing we did to bring in our surface. We're going to come over to our drop down here, and we want to bring in an Autodesk Revit file. It's going to bring up our dialog box to the last location that we imported something from, which was our Civil 3D surface. Not what I want, so I'm going to go back to our project files folder. I'm going to go into our Revit folder here, and I'm going to select our Revit webinar project and click open. And it's going to tell us that this requires an internet connection. We'll say, thank you, we understand, and to go ahead and send this information. It's also going to tell us that linked files and custom textures will not be imported into InfraWorks. So that's saying that the surface that we linked, the topography that we linked into Revit, isn't going to be brought into InfraWorks. That's why we went ahead and brought in our Civil 3D surface separately into our InfraWorks model here. So we'll click OK. It's going to work and upload files up into the cloud here and connect any data sources that it needs to. And then as it does that, then we will need to do a little work here within our file to get everything to show up. So we still have our wheel over here telling us that it's still uploading things. So as soon as it does, then we'll be able to make a few changes to that. Come on, little blue dots. Things never quite work as fast as you like, but it's really a pretty seamless process that we have here. So after bringing that up, we see that it says it's not configured. I simply need to right-click on our building and say configure. And it's going to bring up this dialog box. So we need to set our coordinate system and everything. So our main coordinate system here, we want to leave this at XY-IFT. And then our position, our coordinate system here, we want to change this to PA83SF. And then our local origin, this is going to be what I use for our shared coordinate when I was setting up our Revit file. I need to punch in these coordinates real quick. So our X is going to be 2305,241.84 feet. Our Y is going to be 195696.34. Have an elevation here. Our site is at 825 for an elevation. And we need to rotate our Revit model from project north to true north. So to figure that out, let me come back over to Civil 3D. And what we need to know is, let me come over to my home tab. I'm going to turn a layer on. Is I know that in Revit, my project north here is parallel to our left wall here on the house. So this is our project north, and our true north is here. So I need to know what that number is there, that angle. And it's 47 degrees, 7 minutes, 38 seconds. So I've noted that. So I'm going to come back over to our InfraWorks. And for our rotation, we want to rotate it about the Z-axis, 360 degrees minus what that rotation was. So 360 minus 47 should put us at 313, or we could simply type in negative 47. If we knew the decimal degrees, I would punch that in there to be a little bit more accurate, but I'm just going to go with negative 47 now so that we can get an idea of how our site is going to lay out. So I set my local position and coordinate system, and I set the rotation for my Revit model. Now I'm going to close and refresh this, and we should see our house show up right there on my build-in lot. So now we have our InfraWorks model. In real-world coordinates, we've got our house located on it. We can zoom around that. If we're doing a commercial site, this is especially beneficial because then you can see any detention ponds that you might be working with around your site. And now, because we have saved this Revit model in BIM 360, anybody on the project team can then open it up and get a good visual representation of what we're doing within our project. So there we've covered two main things. We've covered sharing a surface from our Civil 3D into Revit using the export surface and BIM 360. And then we've covered bringing in our data into InfraWorks from Revit and Civil 3D. And we have our BIM 360 model saved within our, or our InfraWorks model saved in our BIM 360 project, which then gives everybody access to that. That is part of our project. So let's jump back over to BIM 360. I'm going to come over to document management, and we're going to talk a little bit about sharing links with our project members, and then also sharing links with the public, which is a fairly new feature within probably the last 2 or 3 months. They've added that to BIM 360. So let me come over to our document management tab panel here, and it's going to open up to all of our documents, and we can simply browse to any document that we have within our project files section of our document management. Currently, I believe sharing documents with the public does not work out of your plans folder yet. I believe that's still in work. We don't have any plans in our current project. We're just going to go share our current files that we have. So I'm going to go into our Civil 3D folder here, and we're going to say, I just want to share this drawing with a project member so that they can make sure they take a look at it. So I'll select it, and I'll come over to our share button right here. I'll click on that. And right now, currently, we only have the option to share with project members. So I have a choice. I can email it to a project member, or I can share a link with them. So we can see I've got a couple of users here that I can share with. I've got myself and Mr. Ray Spruance, who was our other engineer, so he has access to the civil data here. So I could go ahead and click that and then browse down here and see that he's the only user that I can share it with right now. We'll we'll go ahead and do that and click save. And then I can add a note here to Ray and say, Ray, please double check building pad. Simple enough, right? I can email it to him, and Ray's going to get an email saying that that document is there for him to look at. I'm also going to copy myself on that email just so I can pull it up and we can see what that email looks like when we send it out. So one link has been shared. That's been shared by email. So let me jump over to my email and we'll see if that shows up. We'll refresh my email over here. You guys can't see it. I'll open it up and drag this over, and we can see that I just shared one item with myself and Ray, and I asked Ray to please I forgot to check the building pad. He has a link right there to the document on BIM 360, and you can see who sent that to him. So that's sharing our data with other project members. But what do I do if I want to share outside of our project to somebody that hasn't been invited to the BIM 360 project yet, doesn't really need to or doesn't want to, but I need them to look at something? Well, we saw that when I was in the share here, I didn't have an access to share it with anybody else. What do we need to do to address that? If I come over to my project admin, I click on that, and it's going to come over here, and I want to go to advanced settings under our project admin. And I want to make sure that I have the share documents publicly turned on. So if I turn that on, that's going to allow project members with at least view plus download permissions to share project files with people outside the project. Those documents are accessible to anyone with the shared link. So you need to be cautious, and you need to protect the distribution of those links very carefully. One cool thing about BIM 360 and sharing data publicly is those links that you create, you can then revoke those links or delete them if you've changed things or you don't want somebody to access those files anymore. So I've turned that on. Now I want to go back to our document management, and we'll go back into our project files, and we will find a file to share there. So let's go over to our Revit, and I've got our Revit document here. If I click on share, now I have a drop down here where I can share with project members, or I can click on share with public. So this is going to allow me to share this outside of our BIM 360 project. So I can enter emails. I'll just enter an email here. And then we'll email this file over to them. Now note down here, we have it set to share current version latest. What this means is that if I share this document with somebody and I have it to share current version latest, and I share it today on Thursday, and they don't open up till Tuesday, if any changes have been made to that document between today and Tuesday, when they click that link, it's going to give them the latest version of that file. If I don't want that to happen, and I want them to only see the version as it is today, I would click on Share Current Version Fixed. And what that does is it's going to lock in whatever current version I've tied to this link and allow them to see that. So if I want them to see where things are at today, but my designs team is still cranking away on that Revit model and the rest of the project, I don't want to bother them with the changes that are going on after today. I want them to look at this model as it sits. Then I would check that Share Current Version Fixed. Now I can either email it out, or I can click on link, and we can see up here it's telling us that the link expires on Thursday, October 22nd. The furthest out you can set that link to expire, I believe, is 90 days, I believe. So that would take us out to January 5th. That might be a little bit more than 90 days. Today's 8th. Yeah, I think that's right at 90 days. A little bit more. So it'll go out 90 days. So we can set it to expire And a week if we want, we could set it to expire Wednesday if we want. We're just going to choose the 14th, and then it's going to create this link right here, so I can then copy that link, and then it's copied to my clipboard, and I can share that link out. So let me go ahead and click close. And now we see that this just changed to shared right here. With this selected, since I've got this shared out, I realize that, oh man, I sent that to the wrong guy. I can delete that link that I just selected by either hovering over shared right here and coming over to click on delete link, or I can come up to delete link right here and delete that out. So let's see, I sent that out to my email here, I believe. Let me refresh that. I think I just copied the link. I didn't actually send the email. So that is my bad. One thing to note with sharing data is if you have multiple files selected, so let's come over to our Civil 3D and shared surfaces, because I know I have a couple of files in here. If I was to select both of those and come up to share, how is it going to handle, sharing multiple files all at once? So let's do an email. Cancel. I need to share this with the public. Enter an email. So we're going to email it here. Check these drawings. And we'll go ahead and send this. So I have 2 drawings selected. We've got this set to expire on Thursday, October 22nd, and we've got it set to share the current version latest. So if I made any updates to these drawings, they would get the latest version when they clicked on those links. So let me go ahead and send that out, and we'll see how fast it takes to travel through the interwebs to get to my email. Still on its way, apparently. Let me check my spam folder to make sure it's not in there. There we go. Looks like it's on its way. All right, so if I open up my email over here, we can see that I shared 2 files, so I have a link for each file. If I was to click on that, it's going to open up a tab, and it's going to take me right in there where I could download that file right out of BIM 360 without having a BIM 360 account for this email. I've just shared that file with somebody. So I'll close this. We can see 2 drawings, 2 links. But what happens if you have a large number of files, or if I just wanted to share a folder? So if I wanted to share this shared surfaces folder here, I'll click on share. I'll go ahead and email it to myself again. I'm going to share it with the public. Share, and then we'll go ahead and click send and send that off. So we want to see how this is going to handle multiple files being shared with the public all at one time. It would work the same way as if you were sharing multiple files within somebody in the project. They would get these same data. So we come over here. Let me drag my email back over. We can see that now I have 1 link because I shared a folder. I'm sharing the shared surfaces folder. So if I click on that, and it's going to bring me over here, and it's shared surfaces. So if I click on download, it's going to offer up a zip file for me, which is going to contain all the data within that folder that I shared. Simple enough. It's a great feature for you to be able to share data out of your BIM 360 account to people that may not have access to the BIM 360 project itself. And it's even better that you can then go in there and cancel any links that you might have shared, so we can see that this is shared. I can delete that link because I don't want anybody to access that anymore. And then I can also come into the shared folders here. I can see that those are shared. I could delete those links and manage access to my project a little bit as well. So that's sharing our data out of BIM 360. I think that is a great tool. We talked about Civil 3D in our surfaces and collaborating with Revit using BIM 360. We talked about InfraWorks and bringing our Revit data and our Civil 3D surface data into InfraWorks and being able to store that whole InfraWorks project on BIM 360 so that anybody with access to the project could then see that InfraWorks folder.